SDP, the Steve Dangle Podcast, with your hosts, Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake. Let's go!
No, Adam, show us the mug.
Oh.
I like your...
mug. I think this mug is from season 5 or 6. They have a new mug every year. So
of what, for people listening?
The Marilyn Dennis Show on CTV.
Does it taste like mom?
Right now it's tasting like a poorly made coffee that I made too fast. And I don't want to know what mom tastes like. Thanks very much, Jesse. That's quite disturbing. I'm not really sure. Jesse,
that's the worst thing we're going to discuss today, and we're talking about the Leafs again. Like, good Lord!
I give both of those topics the same kind of screwed up pinchy face, but that's me.
You know what, Jesse makes funny.
What did I do?
No, he makes funny jokes most of the time. Jesse makes funny jokes at least 4 times out of 7. Every time.
Would you say Jesse could close out a show?
Oh, even if Jesse lays back-to-back duds at our feet, I know the next one's going to kill.
And do you think he has the experience would you say that he has the experience, Steve?
No, what I
finish
think,
it?
I just like that he doesn't make excuses. And I just like that he's always there. And just never lets me down, always, repeatedly. I like that about him.
You know what we're going to talk about today with respect to the rest of the playoffs. I'm sorry. It's so funny that the Leafs tragedy is the biggest story in hockey right now, but frankly it is. Because everybody in every market is interested in how you got Stephen A. Smith talking about it. I mean, this is bad. Jesse, did you want to, we've got audio kicked up for that. Do you have the Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah, I can play the Stephen A. Smith.
Can you play it?
If you want. I want
to cheer people up.
I was on ESPN Plus on the app. That's where his new show is. And I couldn't get it in Canada to play the full clip. So I only have the 18-second one that was going around on Twitter. But yes, I will play it right now.
So Maple Leafs right there are the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL. The Dallas Cowboys of Canada. Just failures on an epic level every year.
It's true.
Failures on an epic level every year pretty much sums it up.
They don't fail a little. They fail hard.
Guys,
like we said last episode, had they been swept, it would have been less noteworthy.
Look at Edmonton. They're kind of calmer than us.
Yeah.
I've watched the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So what I would say to Stephen A. is, nope, not bad enough.
I want to cheer you up with a couple of things before we really get started here. First off,
it's not going to work, but continue.
There was a man who gave Kyle Dubas an A+ in the organization, an A+ in April. The same man today said this. The two teams that have been been built by analytics are both on the outside looking in, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Edmonton Oilers. This is someone you should never listen to ever again. Pierre McGuire. You know that. You know what he's going to say. But Pierre McGuire, not 4 weeks ago, gave the Leafs organization and Kyle Dubas an A+ and is now ripping on them for using analytics. We know the analytics debate is over, but Pierre is your uncle who still needs to talk about Nam. Like there's that.
Jesus.
You know what I mean? Though, it's that not actual uncle that went to Nam. With respect, it's more like along the lines of that there's guys that are just talking about the good old days and they're still reliving their golden years.
No, he just needs to be brilliant. He needs to be brilliant. And that's
Pierre. Yeah, he can't it has to be about
my
Pierre.
Brilliant eye that has been just rejected from coaching for over 2 decades now. My brilliant unmatched eye is the only thing here. And I need to know why stations need to keep bringing Pierre McGuire on to say the exact same thing.
Well, because it's
Somebody poison the water hole. You're my favorite deputy. Analytics are alive. Fucking Woody ass opinion. I don't care.
it's funny.
Can you believe he said that? Yes, because he's got one thing to say.
I gotta ask TSN Montreal if they can just stop asking him about analytics. Like, stop. If you have to have him on, stop asking him. Because everybody knows what the answer is, and they're pretty intelligent hosts over there. So it's not as though I wonder even if that question was prompted. I wonder if they're like, "Hey, how do you feel about analytics?" I wonder if it was just
highly doubt it.
Here's how I fucking feel about analytics.
Yeah, to give him the benefit of the doubt, I'd like to hear it, because the Twitter is always a tough place because anybody can write a sentence and it looks tough, especially when it's from these hockey aggregator accounts where it's like, Pierre McGuire said this, everybody go get mad. And then they do.
Right.
So
well, I know
love
Pierre
to hear it.
He did say it. Arpon Basu was tweeting about it. I know that he said it. It's just a matter of
what context?
Did they prompt it?
All right.
Did they prompt it? And was the question because I could ask Pierre the question, hey, how do you feel about, how the Leafs went? And he could have gone, well, if you look at the two teams that are on the outside looking in, it's the Oilers and the Leafs and they like analytics. And by the way, the Oilers were not built on analytics. So I'm not really sure where he was going with that. The reality is
lie.
We needn't spend much time on this. Yeah. I was just bringing it up so you'd laugh. And I hope you
and nobody did because we're just upset. Because it's been an angry 48 hours.
Let me try this, guys. Antonio Brown has signed on for cryptocurrency. He said, I've decided to join D's Nuts Coin. And they stand for, and what they stand for, and I'm going all in on D's Nuts. And they're trying to raise money. It is like a Bitcoin sort of thing. It's a cryptocurrency, but they're trying to raise money to fight cancer, in testicular cancer and that sort of thing. But I just thought, Antonio,
that's awesome.
D's Nuts Coins, which I thought was kind of funny, right? That's kind of a cool initiative. I'd join D's Nuts Coins.
Who's going to be the first person to be cremated and put in an NFT urn? Like, when did everything become a meme? Jesus.
It's funny. I read an article today saying that NFTs have fallen off a cliff in terms of value in the last month. And everybody's like, well, we all knew this was coming. It's the end. And I'm like, well, they just sold the Charlie Bit My Finger for $750,000. So I think they're okay. Yeah. And beyond that, this is how cryptocurrency works. It's wild swings in the market. So I think it's a little early to be calling the NFT thing dead. It's just a matter of maybe it evens out a little bit,
Volatility.
Guys, why
is the stock term?
Why are you making me record today? Just let me die.
You know what? I feel a little bit more sober and better about everything. So I do want to.
Really?
I think
I've gotten worse. I'm surprised.
Okay, so this is good. We should have this talk. So obviously, the story: the Leafs and the Canadiens. The Canadiens win, the Leafs do not. I think from the Montreal side, Deneau and Gallagher and Price deserve a ton of credit. Caulfield and Kotkaniemi, who should have been playing since the first game. It's funny how once they play, the series shifts. I think they made a bad coach look really, really good, to be honest. So full credit to the Montreal Canadiens players. You cannot convince me that Dom Ducharme, I almost called him Jeff, is a good coach. He's not, but this will probably save his job.
That made me laugh, you bastard.
Yeah, and it probably saves Bergevin's as well. So good for them. Players came through, and that's what you hope for. The disrespect that I felt that Kyle Dubas was served, and this is an odd spot. I felt like with the effort and and I'm setting you up, Steve, for this because this is a point you made a year ago against Columbus. The disrespect this team shows to the general manager who paid them all. Especially the star players.
And he's extra attentive when a player's hurt or they're in hospital, they're going through something, always goes to bat for them in the media, and he's willing to take the hit from the media, and he goes at the targets that the players don't like. That GM has paid an unbelievable amount of money to a group of players that has been outscored 11-2 in their past 3 game 7s.
Or deciding games, because
deciding
game
games.
5 last year.
Game 7, game 5, then game 7. And it's all or nothing. It's an all or nothing game. It's when your best game is supposed to be. And they've been with different supporting casts, but the main players stay the same, outscored 11-2, including a shutout over their last 3 final all or nothing deciding games. You don't stay young forever. When's this team not young anymore? When's this team not young anymore? When is it just part of their DNA that they're chokers? Like, when does that happen? How kind was I and was so much of the fan base? Oh, they're great defensively, though. Look at their defensive performance. They lost. Again. And now we're never going to hear the end of this, by the way. Like, you expect Montreal Canadiens fans to have a good week, and hey, they're going to bring this up forever. They're going to bring this up forever. The Bruins still, like, they have an album to reference, but they always go back to 2013 because that was the best one. Always play the hits, kids. Always play. Don't play. I don't want to hear. You know, the Leafs and Bruins went out there and they recorded Game 7 2019, and they tried to go out to every Leaf Bruins concert, and all the Bruins fans say, enough of this new shit, play the hits. And they go back to 2013 and they show the Jack Edwards clip, and they go, oh yeah, that's my jam. To talk about the dragon and the dagger for a team that shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. Let's go. Encore as Jack Edwards throws guitar picks into the friggin' crowd. At what point is this just who you are? Like, I don't, last year, who'd we give it to? Dubas. Because this wasn't right with the team, and this wasn't right with the team, and this wasn't right with the team. And we gave it to Babcock the year before. And that was a mistake. Not firing him that very day when they got eliminated 2019 was a mistake. And I called it. And CJ's like, nope, the Leafs liked their game 5. And I thought, what a bunch of brainworms in this organization. And they actively decided, why don't we be dog shit for a month and a half to start next season? So they tried that, and they discovered, you know what, we don't like being dog shit anymore. So they went out and they got Sheldon Keefe to be the head coach. And they were good for a while. And then they played. And the team showed, oh, actually, we're still not very good. We're actually kind of crap. Then the young guys got a year older. They added Jack Campbell. He became the starter. They signed TJ Brody, the best defensive signing 25 years?
Since Robert Spala. Seriously, since Robert Spala. I'm not kidding. Robert Spala was the last good defenseman they signed in free agency. Like,
pretty far back. You have to, it predates the not winning a playoff round slump.
Mm-hmm.
They get depth at the deadline. Nick Foligno, I mean, no one asked him to get hurt. I give him a pass on that one. It's an expensive pass.
We'll come back to that.
We will. I know what you're going to say. We will. I don't know what I would change about this team. So you have to look at the core. You have to look at the core, who you coldly and sociopathically look at. You cannot take feelings into account. How do you feel right now? Any fan in this fan base feel loved by this team? Like we're so far beyond caring about anybody's feelings here. You shouldn't hurt them. Anyone who goes to a player's like Instagram page and leaves a comment saying that they suck or whatever after a loss like this, you deserve to be put on a watch list.
You do.
There's
something wrong with you.
I don't feel safe sitting next to you on a flight. Like you shouldn't have a license.
and in all honesty, if that is you, please speak to someone. You do need therapy. And I'm not joking. You do need therapy. It's a definite need in your life. And if you don't recognize that that's a problem, then you for sure need therapy. Run it by 5 people in your life. Ask them if that's okay.
Yes, seriously.
Or you're a child. Like you're
literally like under the age of 18.
You're 11, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what you do with your spare time.
So other than an 11-year-old.
Right. Because I know 11-year-olds who are mean online, and it's okay because they're 11.
Because they're 11.
I played Call of Duty against many of them, and they destroyed me.
Yes, I've been on Shell in a chat room with 11-year-olds. It's not nice.
No, I always lose video games to 12-year-olds, and they go, "Good game, sir."
Oh yeah, every time.
And also your mom. Like it's oh boy. I had to get off Halo pretty quick. But beyond not being intentionally nasty, you don't care about feelings. And listen, who traded Nazem Kadri? Who?
Himself.
Kyle Dubas. Or actually, well, Nazem Kadri.
Nas traded himself.
Yes, you got it right.
Nas traded him.
Yeah.
Nazem Kadri traded Nazem Kadri.
Yeah.
Now, we yelled at Kyle Dubas for the return, but Nazem Kadri pulled the trigger on that trade.
Mm-hmm. And blocked another one that would have brought TJ Brody to Toronto in the first place. So not only that, Nas screwed us in the playoffs and then screwed us in the offseason. People do forget that.
Yep.
And
sure did.
Yes, I understand that's his contractual right, but let's call it what it is.
He traded himself, and he got to pick to where. Lucky him. But he traded himself. The Leafs and Mitch Marner, that the contract saga was so ugly and so horrible, and everyone hated it. And then we said, well, now you're getting paid star money. Why don't you go out there and be a star? And you know what Mitch Marner did? He went out and he was top 5 in NHL scoring.
The first year with his contract?
No, but there was an injury involved and a coach firing and blah, blah, blah. And his points per game was very good. It was very good. So, and then obviously the Panini happens.
Yeah.
This year we go, all right, you got a full season ahead of you. Well, a full you got a new start anyway. You got a blank slate ahead of you. And this dude finishes top 5 in scoring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He led the team in points in the Panini season too, did he not?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he did. And you know, the games where Matthews was out, he was still very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like you talk about needing to step up, and he did.
Let me throw a stat at you. Mitch Marner has never scored less than 42 assists in a season.
That's good. So many assists.
That's insane. His highest, 68. It's a lot of assists.
Pretty good.
And he had 47 in 55 games this year.
And scored at his highest goal scoring clip.
Yes. Would you say Jesse was on track for 30?
There's a 30 goal pace. Yeah. 82 game season.
That's pretty damn good.
So outside of let's pretend he did fine in these playoffs, but they lost anyway. Let's pretend he got 2 goals, 3 assists.
It's a whole different 48 hours.
No, it's not. And here's why.
Okay.
It's the flavors. The flavor's a little different. The flavor's a little different, but the truth I am about to say remains the same.
Okay.
And it's cold.
Let's hear it.
Our warm, dumb human brains will think about it differently, but here's the ice cold truth. After that stupid, awful, shitty, poorly executed saga was over, all they had was games, and he did well in them, but they signed a 6-year contract thinking that by the end of it, the cap would be at least $90 million. Mitch Marner didn't ask for a pandemic. Kyle Dubas didn't ask for a pandemic. Darren Ferris certainly didn't ask for a pandemic. None of the parties involved asked for the situation that we're in that has turned all our lives upside down and, for hockey purposes, kept the cap flat this year, probably next year, and who knows how far into the future. And the difference is you need to seriously evaluate. This is before this season even began. The difference is now that your plan is shot. We're going to sign these guys. It'll be expensive, but it'll get cheaper as the contract goes on. That plan is shot by the pandemic. So his top 5 scoring performance alone, like before that even happens, the plan is shot. And now that they had the terrible performance in the playoffs, you need to literally call teams. You have to call teams and offer them this player. Now, you're under no obligations to trade this player. You don't want to emotionally trade this player. You can keep this player. You can keep this player and he'll do great for you. He will. But the reality of 2021 is not the reality that you signed this contract in 2019. Was it 2019? I think it was 2019.
I think it was.
Your reality is worlds apart from that one. And you need to seriously consider trading this player.
The only thing I'll say to that is, in your world, he could have had a playoff performance that justified $11 million.
Yep.
And then, like you said, Kyle Dubas built a great team with him on the roster, so he could do it again, and he could have just showed up and performed like the amount of money, and then you wouldn't have to trade him.
Yeah, I'll say this. It's very unlikely you win a Mitch Marner trade. So I don't.
Well, I got a few things to say about that, but we can keep going with this, guys. I want to address that one particularly.
Sure. Like you don't trade him for nothing, and you're not eager to trade him, but you have to start the dialogue.
I don't think Mitch Marner is unique enough to the point where you can't not trade him. Because Austin Matthews in his role is a once in a generation guy. Mm-hmm. But there's not the left wing first line slot isn't so unique that you can't get a player who will lead your team to victory in that role in the lineup.
Yeah,
for
right
Mitch
wing,
Marner.
Right wing.
Sorry, right wing. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can't get another right winger on a first line that can help your team win. If that makes sense.
It does. And like Nicholas Backstrom never once got, or I think asked for, Alex Ovechkin money. We knew who the star was. We knew who put the puck in the net. You put most valuable primate out there with Alex Ovechkin. He probably set him up for a couple one-timers, for God's sake. Not taking anything away from one of the most underrated players of a generation in Nicholas Backstrom. But I don't think the Capitals for 1 minute were like, let's give these guys a near equal amount of money. And
right. You don't have to win the trade. You just have to win the slot in the lineup that's going to help you win a round in the playoffs. Because like I see one of the big conversations that's happened in the last 2 days is, okay, it takes teams in the NHL a lot. It takes cores a lot of kicks at the can to win in the playoffs. It took Ovechkin from the day he was drafted until 2018 to win a Stanley Cup.
2004 to 2018.
It took Tampa Bay so many chances, and then they lost, and they got swept by Columbus, and they still ran it back again because the GM and the whole club believed in them. They brought back the core.
2 trips to the Cup final.
You don't trade Crosby and Malkin just because they have a bad playoffs. Like I've seen that a whole bunch of times, and like I worked at the Zoo story is bringing up the 2019 Toronto Raptors because that's my favorite sports team of all time. And like with that championship run, I learned that the regular season means nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
I feel bad for Leafs fans next year because they're got to sit through 82 games and realize that, hey, it means absolutely nothing. Your 82 games. It's about.
I can't wait to do LFR for 80 games.
You got to do it. It's your job. So
they don't matter, but they don't matter.
Like, they don't.
They're exhibition. There's exhibition, and then there's exhibition that counts, and then there's the playoffs.
Right. You have your warm up. It's your 82 games, and then that's your warm up to win in the playoffs. But the thing about the kicks of the can with this team is that the bar is so low. with all of those franchises, with, hey, Malkin and Crosby, they had a bad playoffs. You don't trade them. Ovechkin didn't win a cup till 2018. The bar for Matthews and Tavares and Nylander and Marner isn't to win the Stanley Cup or go on a deep run. It's just to win a round.
Yes.
Like, so the bar for fans is, hey, close out one series. You've had 5 tries at this.
One series with 3 attempts to do it.
It's not go win a championship. It's win a round and we'd be happy. So that's why I'm like, hey, there's a couple of guys here. You didn't show up in the only part of the season that matters. You showed up in the preseason where you got to practice to get into the playoffs. You showed up there, but then you didn't show up again in the playoffs. You don't get another kick at the can because your bar for success is at the ground. You can walk over it, and you couldn't do that. At some point, you can't. So,
if I might, I was listening to, and a lot of the attention circles around Mitch Marner, and I think it should. You have high-paid players that you expect things from. It's funny with Matthews. I know he'll figure it out. With Nylander, honestly, there are focus issues there. But if that guy was on his game like he was,
goals.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, I'm talking about the regular season.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But you're right, 100%. He was spectacular. I thought he was the best player in the series for the Leafs. Him and Jack. My issue is, and the reason why I tweeted what I tweeted, which was, I think this is very likely Mitch Marner's last game in Toronto. It wasn't an emotional thing.
Nope.
What I saw this series,
cold.
It was cold. What I saw this series, Steve, you bring up the cap considerations. And by the way, there's going to be a lot of people going, who the hell would take that albatross of a contract? Well,
everybody.
48% of it's been sold, been paid. So as soon as July 1st hits, that will be the percentage of it that's paid. Mitch Marner's average, I think, is going to be $6.25 million in actual dollars. And people
in cash.
Like, yeah. And people will be like, well, who the hell could take a cap hit of 11 million? Well, there's plenty of teams that would love to have that and they want dead money. There's a lot of teams that want dead money because it means they fill the cap space without actually having to pay the player. It's great. Now,
it's here. Sorry. Well, It's as if Luke Fox is listening to our show somewhere on one of our walls. He just tweeted, fun fact, since joining the team, Mitch Marner leads the Toronto Maple Leafs in playoff points per game with 0.78.
Okay. So
that makes me feel so much worse. This
I'd
guy's
like
the best one. Like, what a nightmare.
Go ahead, Adam.
What a nightmare. I hate these guys. I hate this team. I want to tear every one of these things off the wall. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
To be fair, he's one of the only guys that's been here this long.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, he should be. He should be the leader. He's the leader in the regular season in scoring. He should be the leader. That shouldn't surprise you. I think what is particularly jarring for me for what I saw in these playoffs from the play on the ice, and you could show me stats that you might be able to show me stats, although I don't think you can, that would maybe challenge this. Mitch Marner's style of play. It's not that he doesn't care. I heard Elliot Friedman talking about on Anthony Petrelli's podcast for Maple Leafs Hot Stove before this. I was listening, and Elliot's like, Leaf fans think he doesn't care. He clearly cares. He's clearly devastated. I have never once thought that Mitch Marner lacks passion for the game. I've never once thought that Mitch Marner is a bad person. Like we said earlier, if you're one of those people that's like, he needs to die alone in a forest, you're fucking nuts, and you need help.
Yeah.
But I am going to criticize his play. Somebody said to me the other day, I think Mitch Marner is probably the best perimeter player in the league. And I think they might be right. And when we talk about what
it's not basketball, you can't shoot threes.
Right. When we talk about what succeeds in the playoffs, though, it isn't that game. So I don't know that I'm not sure that he doesn't want to. In fact, I know that it's not that he doesn't want to. I'm not genuinely sure that he can. I'm not sure that the game the Leafs need from Mitch Marner is the game that he can deliver them. I don't know of, you look at a guy like Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, great hockey player, perimeter player, sets a lot of people up, but you'll see Patrick Kane drive the net. I have never once seen Mitch Marner drive the net, especially lately. I don't think it's possible. I think, and then we get into the whole situation with, and this is diverging from my point a little bit, but still along those lines. I think when you have players that create issues in front of the net, which the Leafs did a terrible job of in this series, you can create a lot of scoring chances in the playoffs, as we saw. And there's a report
it wasn't a problem, and
right.
We don't want to do it anymore.
There's a report out there about Mitch Marner not wanting to play the goal line on the power play. Now, not being a systems guy, my assumption would be it's dangerous to play the goal line. It sucks to play the goal line because
Darcy Tucker played the goal line.
Yeah, because NHL defensemen will blow you up. They will, even on the penalty kill. You watch guys dance along the goal line towards the goalie with the puck, they always get crushed. Now, Mitch Marner came out today and said that was a lie. I have to tell you, the people reporting these things are people that I tend to trust. So here's my main issue with this. Okay, you've got Mitch Marner saying, absolutely not true, I would have played the goal line. You've got Manny Malhotra, who's running the power play, who makes no changes on it from the time it goes dead about 2.5 months ago. And you're going to tell me that a coach who sees what's happening, who's looking at the numbers, goes, no, I'm fine, I'm going to keep it the same.
So Justin Bourne said something interesting about that because he's worked closely with the Marlies when Keefe was the head coach. And he said when something's failing, like the power play or the penalty kill, Keefe gets closer and closer to that failing problem. So by the end of it, he's unsure if Manny Malhotra was actually in charge of the power play. It might have been Keefe who's making some decisions at the end there because of how much of a failure it has been during the regular season.
So what I would say is it looks like no decisions were made at all because it was the exact same power play each and every time. So let me say this. Just let me say this. If it's untrue that Mitch Marner said, hey, I won't play the goal line on this, then go out next year and prove it. Go play the goal line. Because guys like Ray Ferraro are on the radio today saying that is what you need to do. That is what you need to do. And Ray wasn't verifying it. He said, but if that is the case, to be successful in the NHL, these are the things that you need to do. And I am not certain. I know that Mitch Marner's game lends itself to the regular season. We've seen that top 5 in scoring. The guy's unbelievable. I am not convinced in playoffs when things get tight. And you can throw his points per game at me. He hasn't scored a goal in the postseason since he signed his extension. Yeah. So that's two playoff series. He has not. That is 12 games. He has not scored a goal. That is not okay. He has 8 assists in those 12 games. That's okay. He's almost completely shut out of the scoring in Game 7 or Game 5 situations. I'm sorry. I don't know if his style of play lends itself to what the Leafs need when it comes to the postseason. The Leafs can make the playoffs. Can they score and succeed in the playoffs? What we saw, I don't believe it.
Could it not only be his style of play, but his mental toughness? Like, I hate questioning that in players, but we all watch the games. Can you not tell me that that's a guy who looks nervous? Well, the puck over the glass penalties, Steve, you brought it up last episode. That's unbelievable.
It's visibly nervous, though, and Arpin Basu tweeted it out. And, like, I didn't tweet anything, but, like, I can't remember if I said anything during the stream. But I'm looking at the faces he's making. I was talking about his body language at one point. I was like, bro, like, this game's tight. You're going to be fine. Like, you can get one next shift. Everything's going to be fine, man. Like, I'm Dr. Anxiety, and I'm the one going, bro, you're going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine, man. And he was the most visibly nervous guy on the team. And I don't think that's unfair to say. No one's going, oh, you weakling, you can't do it, and fortitude.
Well, there are people saying that. There are people.
Those people are idiots.
Right. Yeah.
But nerves are real.
Nerves are real.
It's, there's been an interesting conversation around, athletics and basically mental illness and, Naomi Osaka kind of at the center of all that. But like I'm watching the guy make faces. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and it feels, it's like you said about the points per game thing. He's been here the whole time. And this is part of the reason a big part of the reason why he's getting hammered. Who else has been here the whole time?
Matthews,
Austin
Nylander
just won the Rocket. And I tell you what, I kind of think Marner had a better series than Austin did. I mean,
Austin didn't look good at all. Let's just be flat out about that. He was not good.
So often the Habs attacked. Matthews did a dogged job on defense of getting the puck back, and then Hyman and Marner brought the puck up together alone with Matthews miles behind them, and it didn't work. It just didn't work.
Philip Deneau also did a fantastic job. Like, not enough credit's being given to their top line on shutting down, focusing in on Matthews so that you leave Marner to make plays, and he was unable to do it.
And especially once Tavares goes down, right?
Yeah. Then you
know
just
who learned a
one
lesson
guy
here?
to take out.
You know who learned a lesson here? Sheldon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not afraid to put him out against anyone. Maybe not next time, eh? Like, maybe don't say that next time, eh?
The 25 minutes for each of those guys, Matthews and Marner, might have been a little much. Maybe you had to shelter them a little bit more, give them less so they're not drained out by game 7.
Tavares is out. And Foligno is hurt. And no. They're making world beater money. Beat the world.
I agree.
We're not even asking you to beat the world. We're asking you to beat Philip Deneau, Gallagher with a broken thumb, and a guy who was a healthy scratch in Tatar. Oof.
And a goalie that, frankly, barely even made it in time for the playoffs. I mean, he's hurt. We know Price is hurt. There's a lingering issue there. And
Weber, Sherratt. I can't wait for whenever the Habs playoffs are done and we find out what's up with Ben Sherratt. Beat the fuck up by the end of that series. The Leafs hammered that human being. Weber went into that series hurt. Oh, it's revolting. But sorry, I need to continue my point. So we talked about Marner. Matthews, we talked about his problem. Nylander, he's been there the whole time. Oh, well, you know what? He had 5 goals, and he didn't have his regular center. So, okay, I'll give it to him. Riley, we need to... Oh, God, no. He was head and shoulders above how he was in the regular season.
he was great.
Right.
He was
all right. All right, now, who else do we give it to? Who else has been there the whole time?
Freddie sitting on the bench.
Freddie. Oh, he was the backup, and he did great.
Great in that role. Really great.
He did great in that role. So, like, of the guys who have been there the whole time, the most disappointing are clearly Marner and Matthews. And
what about Hyman?
Oh, there's Hyman.
Been there the whole time.
He came into the series also hurt. And for the last 3 games, all of which they lost, he was pretty clearly the most effective forward on that line.
You can't look at Zach Hyman and say that he didn't play hard.
You never can.
And didn't get chances.
You never can.
He had breakaways, and he had that one-timer in Game 7, and you go, you know what? You got to bury it. Well, fuck.
No,
Easier
he's not
said
a
than done.
finisher.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
not a
he is.
finisher.
Yeah, he is.
Who's
But
on
he's
his
not-
line? He
but
has
he's not
2
those two.
guys who are supposed to finish for that line.
He's
Yeah,
not
if you're
those two.
relying on a Zach Hyman breakaway to
Come
win you a
on.
playoff series, you're not going to win much.
But at some point, there was a point in Game 5 or 6 where he was like, oh, okay, like I gotta pull the trigger here. I gotta be the trigger man because like these two can't get a shot through. And Marner did a good job feeding Hyman for that one goal. It was essentially Marner's goal. Hyman had great chances on the power play, breakaways, one-timers. He was always shoving it in, always in the blue paint. He was the best forward. He was the best forward back half of that series on that line. How many? God, like you can't get 8 goals out of Nylander and Spezza combined and lose. Campbell cannot have a near identical save percentage to Price and lose. You can't get a series like that out of Morgan Riley and lose. You can't get so many of the things that you got out of this series. And you know, we talk about sample size, and that's the playoffs. We're not even talking about the whole series. We're talking about 3 games.
That's a good point.
3. God, Game 4 is their best playoff game since we were in high school.
Jesse wasn't even in high school yet.
No.
Jesse wasn't even in high school.
And you
how
can't
do
even,
you?
you
This
can't
is
even
what
blame
I'm
the
talking about with
Muzzin
the
injury.
LFRs, guys. Sorry, what?
You can't even blame the Muzzin injury because it should have been wrapped up by then.
They overcame a 2-0 deficit and outshot the Habs 13-2 with Muzzin out the whole time, the entire time.
5 defensemen. They played.
They went up.
Man.
They went up 3-1 without Tavares the entire time.
It's ridiculous.
None of it is an excuse. So what the? This is what I'm talking about with the LFRs. What happens when the thing that you're best at becomes the thing that you hate?
Oh man, welcome to most people's jobs.
Yeah, Steve.
I think that's pretty normal. You can hate your job. You're allowed to not like doing LFRs for a while. You still have to do them though.
That's not a choice.
That's dude. Listen, I love what I do. I love what I do for a living. Do you think that I like it every morning?
Adam, do you like waking up at 5 a.m?
Fucking hate it. I am not an early morning person. There are mornings I walk in there and Jesse sees me and I'm fucking grumpy. Grumpy.
Especially if there's construction.
Oh, fuck me. Every goddamn route to 260 Richmond Street West right now is down to one goddamn lane, and I'm fucking stuck every morning, and it takes me 15 minutes longer. Now,
No,
what I'm saying, Steve,
traffic is not part of your job.
Yes, it's a
Traffic
part of
makes
my
you
job.
mad.
The whole thing is a part of your job. Yeah.
And let me tell you this. How about this, Steve? When you work really hard, because here's what they do. So I prep my show the day before, as does Jesse. We all contribute to a Google Doc, and then in the morning we line up what we're going to do. You know what's great? When you work your butt off, you prep, you give up time with your family every evening, and you put a show on the air, and some jackass texts you and goes, you know what? Fuck you. You're only here because your mom's Marilyn Dennis. That's happened. That's happened before.
I don't think that's the same LFR.
No, but what I'm saying is, do you think I like my job in that moment?
Oh,
I do not like my job in that moment.
Right.
Sometimes it sucks to do what you're best at. This is what you're best at. So on the LFR,
like whenever I get mean comments like that, I'm not like, oh, I hate doing this. I'm like, I hate that asshole who
right.
That
and it's early, and it's this, and it's that, and then maybe the ratings are shitty that month for whatever reason. And you got to deal with the fact that the ratings are shitty and you have no control over it.
I think the point here is, Steve, you need to keep doing the LFRs regardless of if you hate yourself every time you do it.
Yes, exactly.
Like I miss being a kid and these guys were superheroes and they could do no wrong.
No.
And now I'm just like, you're literally some dude and you happen to be good at hockey and you lead us along, and when the playoffs come around, you kind of stink, and then we do it again.
Growing up's a bitch, huh?
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. Not to be that depressing, but like
in your fandom, when you realize that, hey, a lot of these fans care about this team more than the guys on it. It's a sad day, but it puts you in a place, and you keep cheering on.
And here's the thing: you look at a guy like Kawhi. Every Raptors fan cares more about the Raptors than Kawhi Leonard ever did, but won a championship, so that's fine.
Well, and oh man, he's a great guy, and that goes for so many players. Oh, he's a great guy, and here's a picture of me with that guy. And what? How do you know that guy?
You had a nice experience.
He's a hockey player.
Yeah,
that's how you know that guy.
Yeah,
he's a hockey player. The hockey players play to win. When you don't win, they get yelled at. Like, I don't know. It's not odd that any Leaf is getting yelled at today, and we're talking about the fact that maybe some of them need to be traded.
That's why the on-ice criticism is something that's necessary from fan bases and from media personalities, because that's what we're here to do. Because you're in this position. We're not here to judge your character or anything. We're just here to judge your skill at this dumb sport that somebody invented, that we watch and we root for certain teams and we analyze them. We're talking about your skill, and if it's not good enough, you need to go and they're going to get another guy who's going to play hard enough.
Yep. There was a rumor out there that Mitch Marner went golfing yesterday, and people were like, "Oh, of course you fucking did." Blah, blah, blah. And I think if that is your reaction, although that's sort of funny optically, so fucking what, man? Like he's allowed to go golfing.
It's the only thing you can friggin' do here
in Ontario, anyway. But regardless of that, even if golf is his passion, he's just been through the ringer. Things suck. He deleted his social media before the playoffs. Listen. My thing is, it's not about who these people are. Yeah. It's about, I don't doubt that they're good people. I'm sure they're flawed. This is about lack of results. It's not even performance sometimes. It's results. And I don't think that this team, the way it is, can give you the results. And people go, what the fuck are you talking about? Look at these numbers. And I'm not talking about, like, even Dom Lecision would be like, this is fucking ridiculous. And people are like, hey, Dom, it looks like your model's broken. Dom's model doesn't account for what's between the ears, okay? Mm. He doesn't account for historic collapses year after year. There is a problem in the dressing room. I don't care how much these guys like each other. That's really nice. What I do care about is the results that they get. And boy, stinkers every year. I do want to get to the trade deadline. Steve, go ahead.
Well, his model accounts for how astounding this is.
Yeah, exactly.
No number from anybody. Stop acting like it's Dom. Stop acting like it's Jay Fresh. Stop acting like it's a Money Puck. Stop acting like it's Sportsnet. Stop acting like it's ESPN. Everybody who was asked with their eyes and with the numbers and with their heart and with their brain said the Leafs should have won this series. And the Leafs went out for 4 games and they said, you're right. And then for 3 games, they went, actually, fuck it. They didn't care. And also, in defense, golf is the number one activity to participate in when you don't want to be anywhere near any other people.
Yeah. Also, it might have just been some dude at a golf course who's a Leaf fan. And he wrote down Mitch's name on the tee box or whatever. On like, hey, here's his tee time. It's Mitch Marner, and they
it could be anybody
on Twitter. Like there was no evidence for this rumor.
Right. And but my point of that is who fucking cares?
Right.
Even if it was, who fucking cares? I think at the end of the day here, I'd like to move on from Mitch Marner because, Marner and Matthews didn't look great. I get the feeling that Matthews can work this out. I don't get the same with Marner. I don't think his play style, that's my opinion. I don't think it lends itself to the playoffs. Sue me if I'm wrong. Sue me. I there it is, line in the sand, and he could score 120 points for the Leafs next season until I see it in games 1 through 7 in Series 1 with the Leafs. I don't believe it. Now, I do want to talk about the trade deadline because Rahif Issa, she had a sort of one of those mind-bending tweets, and it made me remember how I felt the day that Foligno was traded to Toronto. I thought at the time, and tweeted at the time, that seems kind of steep. And we talked about it on the show. I felt like this is a lot for a guy that, I don't know. Here's the other thing that's come out. We know now that Foligno was injured before the Leafs got him.
Son of a fuck. Oh, my God.
So Taylor Hall, who scored 3 goals in the series for Boston, not saying he would have scored for Toronto.
Would Taylor have done that?
Was a second round pick. Now, at the time, you're like, well, the Leafs are scoring goals in bunches. Who cares? Foligno, who did not score and could not play because the injury got worse, was injured before we gave up a first, 2 fourths, and a 6th rounder for him.
What was the injury and who said it?
It's a knee injury, and I don't believe I don't remember the exact, but he was injured before he got to Toronto. And here's the other problem, and I think this goes to the overall team problem. You're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, the Leafs' problem is depth. I think what they mean is secondary scoring. And what I mean by secondary scoring is you got Marner and you got Matthews and you've got Joe Blow. Doesn't really matter who's going to play on their wing next year. Probably not going to be Zach Hyman. We'll talk about that with Chris Johnston when he's on the show next episode, but I don't think Hyman's going to be back. Neither does he. Your secondary scoring, once Tavares goes down, is led by William Nylander, right? And William Nylander is your secondary scoring. Whomst among us expects a goal from literally anybody else? If we got a goal from Spezza this series, we're happy. Thornton got one. Engvall is not going to score goals for you. Mikheyev is not going to score goals for you. Kerfoot's going to score some, but it's pretty rare.
He was good, too.
I think there's a huge drop-off in Leafs secondary scoring. And if you look at the Colorado model, which is the model you should be following, especially for a team constructed by the Leafs, what we did was we got a little gritty and hardy, and then we doubled down on it again at the trade deadline. And what you should have done is go, who's the best player available? How do we get him? The Bruins do it every trade deadline, and look at them. Look at them. They get the best player available every fucking deadline, every single time. Now, sometimes it works out. Obviously, Rick Nash was I think there was a concussion there. And I believe before that there was Hartman. But then you get like Taylor Hall, who's spectacular. And I think you got to look at this situation and go, okay, we have unbalanced scoring here. Pierre Engvall cannot score. He can barely score in the regular season. He's not going to score in the playoffs. Maybe one.
He's gone.
Well, of course he's gone. But look at the rest of the lineup. Who in there is like, okay, McGuire has missed, I think, when did he get a goal all year? He missed every single opportunity to score he ever had this year.
I think he had 7, but like he really, I swear to God, if he could shoot, he's a 20-goal guy. Like the amount of chances he gets, he generates chances. He does
shoot. He's a 50-goal guy.
Oh, I know. He can shoot though.
McCabe's stat line in the playoffs, by the way, was the old Sam Mitchell thing. It was 0.
Zero.
No goals, no assists, no points. Like,
so you're
the biggest criticism of him isn't that he didn't score; it's that he was not a factor.
Right. Well, and he is not a factor. He wasn't a factor all year. He had a couple of good games, game 3 and 4. He really was great. I even tweeted about him, like, damn, this is the Pierre Engvall I want, because at least he's a factor. He's effective. What do you expect from Gauch going into this series? Maybe a goal. Wayne Simmons, probably not. Pierre Engvall, definitely not. Mikheyev, definitely not. Thornton, maybe a goal on the power play. Well, that didn't really happen. Foligno.
It did.
Oh, sorry. It did happen on the power play. Sorry. One time. Foligno, and then Spezza with 3. Like, look at the names I am naming here, guys. None of these guys are guys who can score. You have maybe Hyman, definitely Matthews, definitely Marner, definitely Nylander, and Tavares if he's in. You're expecting all those guys to score. That is it. They don't have any secondary scoring beyond William Nylander, who, by the way, is secondary.
So let's transition then, because I know why I'm so depressed right now. So because I was sort of depressed doing I just did a podcast before this with Berkshire and Mary there, and I saw the tweet from CJ. Well, it was from the Sportsnet fan account. We're gonna have CJ come on Friday, but the tweet in question is about something he said regarding Zach Hyman, and God damn you, please load so I can read the thing, you son of a gun. Okay, here it is. I'm going to read it to you in its entirety, and I just need you to listen and bask in this dog shit.
Ready.
This is from CJ. If the end result is him having already played his last game as a member of the Leafs, it's unfortunate. It's the business side of the game, and frankly, it's the most likely outcome given where he's at in his career, the way other teams view him, and what the Leafs can afford to pay him. That is unless the Leafs make a big change that I'm not expecting.
Yeah, because someone's going to offer Zach Hyman $5 million to $6 million, and it's going to be stupid, and he's going to take it.
The Leafs losing Zach Hyman for nothing, beyond it being a catastrophic level of unacceptable, would affect me like no Leaf leaving since James Reimer.
It's an own rental, Steve.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I will no. You can't lose this player. You can't lose this player, and you can't lose them for nothing. This goes back to, you need to reevaluate if you can have 3 $11 million guys when the cap is not going up. There was a scenario where, you know what, they can spend to the cap every year. Money, LOL. We don't give a shit about that. You guys, we can't pay them $11 million a year. Here, how about we give them $15 million a year? Here you go. Here's your signing bonus, and we'll give you $16 million. And we don't give a fuck. We're MLSE. We'll give them whatever we want. And then the panini hits, and the cap does not go up, and all of a sudden you can't afford Zach Hyman at half the cost. A heart and soul guy who possesses everything this team lacks, and they're going to lose another one.
Well,
Nazem Kadri has something that we don't have in abundance, and we're going to lose another one.
Well,
that's what this team needs to get going forward. Softer with less scoring depth, and a penalty killer, power play guy. He does everything. Zach, you're going to do face-offs on the penalty kill forever and ever, amen, and we're not going to give you any fucking help. That's kind of weird, Mike. I'm a winger, but I'll try. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Get out there. And then he did it for half a decade. The Leafs losing Zach Hyman, it depresses me.
What do you do if somebody offers him 5.5?
Stop LFR because fuck these guys. Like that's,
no, I mean, as the Leafs, like, what do you can't do anything about that situation if he's like, hey, these guys are offering me a ridiculous amount of money. You know,
that's why you're proactive and you get on the phone and you go, here are all my expensive dudes. And I'll tell you what, this conversation extends to Morgan Riley because he's got a year left. And here, let me throw something. Let me throw something at you. Okay, so unlike last time, the Vegas conversation, it was very obvious they were going to do 7-3. I'm not convinced that's what the Leafs are going to do this time.
No, right now it's no, it should be 7-3, and then curf it. You let him go.
Yeah, they're going to lose him. I think they're going to lose him to the.
You mean 4-4?
Kraken.
No, it's 7-3, and then you keep your defenseman. You
can do 4-4 if you want to.
You can, yeah.
No, because if you do 7-3, then Jesse, Muzzin signed a term. Riley has a year left. Brody signed a term. Hall signed a term. So, are you exposing Riley? Or who are you exposing? Did you got to expose one of the 4 guys I just mentioned?
No, you want to do 7-3. You want to protect all your defensemen, is what I'm saying.
I don't think you're understanding this. No, it's 7 forwards, 3 defensemen.
Oh, I have it backwards then.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, then 4-4. Yeah.
Yeah. My bad. So it's 7 forwards,
I thought you were saying
3
7
defensemen. No, my bad.
I just want to say that was award-winning between both of you.
That was
Fantastic
terrible.
Work. Well done.
No, protect as many defensemen as possible because you're okay to lose some forwards. Is all.
So this is the thing: Matthews, Tavares, Marner. I mean, you're holding all of them, obviously.
Nylander.
And Nylander. So there's 4, and then Kerfoot. You probably lose him. And Seattle goes, absolutely, we'd like to get him. And he's got 2 years left. The Leafs have already paid $8 of the $14 million involved there. If I were the Leafs, I'd actually explore trading him because I think that's a player with value.
Yeah, get something now.
Yeah. Or here's the other option. You can do 7-3 if you trade Morgan Riley, who only has a year left.
And who, by the way, was wearing a YVR shirt in his press conference today. And people were like, oh, Morgan Riley doesn't want to be in Toronto anymore. I think he's just wearing a shirt.
It's where he's from.
That's where he's from.
I know, but I'm just throwing that out there.
No, I'm responding to the internet idiot.
Okay.
Everyone's got
guys.
What the hell?
God, Adam, you're such an internet idiot.
Yeah. Trade Riley. And then here's the fun part. You trade Riley, you do 7-3, and then you still probably lose Dermott. But like, that's not going to make your team sink or swim. I don't think. Freddie comes off the books, but you see what I'm saying here. A goaltender is not getting claimed, certainly, because they're going to protect Campbell, and who are you going to lose? Hutch?
Imagine.
Can you imagine if it what do we do? We just go, thanks? I think because you have to expose one. That's part of the reason Hutch got this 2-year deal. They're like, hey, you're a good person. Oh, and you think I can stop pucks? Listen,
You're a good person.
You're a great guy. And we gotta no, and I think he was supposed to be a mentor in the AHL, and then there was no ECHL. And I think the Leafs goalie depth right now is set up so perfectly, like to have 2, 2, and 2 in the NHL, the AHL, and the ECHL, because they actually got a nice little pipeline of goalies coming up, but they're not close, and they're going to hit on at least one, I would think, but they're not close. So anyway, getting away from the goalies.
That's what we said about Pogge and Sparks.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. No, what they did with Pogge is they had an abundance of young goalies, and they just pointed at him and they said, you're the guy, and threw Rask in the garbage and lucked into Reimer, who they found in a dustbin somewhere. That dude was playing the ECHL the year before he started making stops in the NHL. God, I hate this team. It's so Kerfoot is probably gone. I don't know how. Riley, you need to strongly consider it. And I love Morgan Riley. Too bad.
It's not due to performance, right?
No.
Circumstance.
Circumstance.
The
I want to say that so that people have that context, Steve, because there will be people who take you literally go, Steve Dangle doesn't like Morgan Riley. It's like, what are the rest of the rabble on Twitter?
I love Morgan Riley. I love Morgan Riley. And I want him to be a Leaf. And, we all said in the playoffs for the Leafs to go deep, LOL, he's got to be better. And he was. I cannot believe the performances the Leafs got out of certain guys and the fact that they lost. Like, I really, the performance they got out of him, out of Spezza, out of Nylander, out of Campbell, fuck, you can't lose that goddamn series. You can't. You can't lose 3 consecutive fucking games. It's unacceptable. Holy shit. And now you're looking at a situation where you need to somewhat consider trading Mitch Marner, strongly consider trading Morgan Riley, and strongly consider trading Alex Kerfoot before you lose him for nothing. Like, Kerfoot very proved this series he's not a nothing player. A lot of people are like, oh, he's Seattle fodder, blah, blah, blah. Seattle fodder? You lose the only return you have remaining for Nazem Kadri for nothing. Yeah? Seattle fodder? I don't think so.
Can I ask you guys?
Sure.
Out of the forward group, you have Riley Nash, Zach Hyman, Wayne Simmons, Nick Foligno, Alex Galchenyuk, Jason Spezza, Joe Thornton. All of those guys are UFAs. Mm-hmm. Who are you bringing back?
Spezza, Hyman.
Yep.
That's it.
Thornton is not an NHL player anymore.
Yeah, no, we're done.
It's too bad. We saw it. I love Joe. Loved having him here. Thought it was so cool that he's in a Leafs jersey.
Give him a job.
Galch? I'm interested in Galch, but I'm not interested in Galch at more than Leagueman.
Yeah.
And somebody else will pay him more. Make no mistake. He should stay here because it's a good situation, but they should offer him the least amount that they can to fit him under the cap, put him on Tavares' wing again next year.
The micro version of the Marner conversation is Engvall signed a 2-year deal at 1.25 before the pandemic and after a hot start to his career.
Yeah.
If we go into the summer, like he's probably, we're talking like Leagueman 2-way, right? But he signed early. Lucky him. So you got to find a way to get rid of him. If Seattle were to grab him, that'd be awesome.
The other guys I mentioned were Riley Nash, Wayne Simmons, Foligno, and you already did Spezza and Thornton.
I thought
Foligno would be cool, but I don't think it's gonna. Someone, I think it was Platinum Sea Ghost. They're like, Nick Foligno's post-series press conference is going to be in a car on the way back to Columbus.
Well, I know that first off, I loved having Wayne Simmons here, and I thought he played great till his injury. So if you're going to have Wayne Simmons here, it's got to be at a lower number and it's got to be at a reduced role. Doesn't mean you can't put him on the power play, but I see Wayne Simmons as another guy where you're like, Wayne, we love you. We love having you here. Here's what we can offer you. And you're probably going to play 4th line minutes.
Less than the 1.5. You wouldn't bring back to the 1.5 again?
No.
It's the cap's goddamn flat, Jesse.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, I'd say absolutely.
Like if there was no cap at all, pay him 5. Who cares? But it's sort of, based on the economics of it, you have to try to keep Zach Hyman. Freddie's gone. And Wayne Simmons is a heart and soul guy. I loved having him on the team this year. Gave them a swagger at the beginning of the season that they have not had for a long time. And as soon as he was out, they sort of lost it.
But when we
injured, you cannot rely on Wayne Simmons to play more than 50% of your games.
I talked about Ben Sherratt looking beat up by the end of that series. Simmons got his ass kicked, man. Like they went to war with each other, Simmons and the Habs. And I tell you what, he took some guys with him, but he looked beat up by the end of it all. I think he can be convinced. And I think you can still give him like $1 million, 1.5. God, the cap staying flat for like years at a time. I don't know what you're supposed to do. And this is why the Marner conversation doesn't need to have anything to do with you don't like him.
No,
it's not sustainable to have this. The plan changed. The game changed. What are you supposed to do? There weren't any fans. No one made any money. The cap is there because of the money.
Like, and if you want to get freaked out by something else, I've been reading that there are extremely slight rumblings about the MLSE board being worried about how much money they're spending on the Leafs with little to no return. Huh. And who could blame them? They've got the biggest staffs, biggest scouting, biggest analytics, biggest coaching, biggest medical, biggest everything.
I think crazy conversation.
It's a fair question. Wouldn't you ask Brendan Shanahan the same thing? So we've given you every resource imaginable. We took L after L after L for a while. When does this get better? And if you are on the board, whether you like Brendan Shanahan personally or not, you have to ask that question. Leafs Nation is asking that question. We love Shanny. Most of us love Dubas. There's like a few who don't. But basically, it's Dubas is pretty well liked. Shanahan is well respected. And everybody is looking at this going, yeah, little to no return. And you can tell me each year, oh, well, there's someone's injured, everybody has injuries. Everybody has somebody major go down. You have to overcome it. And I wonder about if Maple Leaf Sports goes, okay, so maybe our organization's a little bloated. So maybe it's time to just keep the best people.
The funny thing about sports franchises is they make their money in winning. You make your most ad revenue, your ticket sales, your jersey sales, every single part of your business just goes up if the team on the field or the ice or the diamond just wins. And that's a wild bomb if those conversations are actually going on. I'm coining the term wild bomb for you, Adam.
The wild bomb. It's not me. That's, by the way, it's not my news.
It's your reporting.
It's you don't blame them for asking. And look at Steve's face. I just want to kiss you. I'm so sorry. I just want to tell you it's going to be okay, because it is going to be okay.
I hate them. I hate them.
So
how can I not? I hate them.
You're last year, apparently what I said after the Columbus series is the hardest thing to do is to do nothing. And they did nothing with the core and brought in some pieces, and we all thought, you know what, this is good. And for the season, it looked really good. What hole do you put in this team? But if your team is not scoring from the top, meaning the best players, if Michael Jordan has a bad series, the Bulls fucking lose, man. And you could say, well, the NBA is not the same as hockey. Okay, let's take a bigger team sport. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't complete passes, the Green Bay Packers don't win, right? Well, it won't be the Green Bay Packers for long. If Tom Brady does not complete passes and game manage like he has at fucking 40 million years old with a brand new team, the Buccaneers do not win. This is the thing. Your star players, I don't care what sport it is, your star players must show up. Do I think they're lacking in secondary scoring? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this comes down to two names, Marner, Matthews. And I put Marner at the top of that because I am not fully convinced. There it is. Now, where do you go from here? Because if you do nothing, here's the other option is, and a lot of people are advocating this, and I understand why, guys. A lot of people say, you know what, do nothing. That's bad luck. What do you say to that?
Well, based on both of your analysis of the forward group, it looks like four guys are going to come back, and that's Tavares, Matthews, Nylander, and Hyman. Those are your four, and the rest are up in the air.
Maybe Spezza too.
And Spezza. So give it five out of 12 at your 12 starters.
Spezza's a team employee who plays. He's such a unique situation.
Yeah. So let's give it 5 out of the 12 to your starters. So more than half of your guys aren't coming back. That's a wholesale change. That's enough. I think where you come back next season, you say, okay, this is a fresh start for a new group of guys. Let's see how this rolls out.
But you gotta now, Jesse. So they're going to bring in a lot of youth. Then I imagine Nick Robertson's going to make this team.
There's one, yeah. There's
one.
There's 6 players.
Rodion and Mirov will get a look.
7.
Potentially 7.
Potentially get a look.
By the way, I would say people are like, what do you do if Mitch Marner goes? If you think you've got a player that's ready in Robertson, wouldn't you put Nylander up with Matthews and then Robertson with Tavares and let him come along? Like
if Marner stays, put him with Robertson.
That's great.
That'd be cool. I want to see it. Let me see it. Let me just see it.
That'd be sick. Imagine Marner, Matthews, and Robertson. That'd be a great line.
Let me see it. God, that'd be fun. Just let me see it. It's the first I've smiled all episode. But so we talked about, I said this before the playoffs began when I actually thought they would do fucking anything. I said I thought they would go younger next season, just kind of at a necessity. And also,
they're a little old.
They're a little old, but also if you look at where their prospects are in their development, there are some guys who are pretty near ready. And Adam Brooks, I thought proved he deserves a look at a regular NHL slot.
Mm-hmm.
Robertson certainly, and he had some horrible luck with
Sandin's a full-time player next season.
Sandin's a full-time player.
He probably takes that Riley slot if he's out the door, like you're saying, Steve.
But this core that we all seem to agree has something not right with it is now going to usher these kids into the National Hockey League, and I just don't trust them. I don't trust them to what and I need to be able to take you seriously. I need to have faith in the advice you're giving me. And if I'm Robertson, I'm looking at them going, well, when I was a high school student, I got called up to play in the playoffs because you guys are such a joke. So how about he doesn't even need to be an asshole about it, but there's got to be a voice at the back of his head going, these guys might not be the smartest, or their advice might not be the soundest. You know what I mean? Joe Thornton comes in there. You see the reverence everyone has for him. Spezza. This is why Spezza is so important to the plan. They need someone who's done anything once ever.
Muzzin.
For God's sake. Muzzin helps the back end.
On the ice the last time the Leafs won a playoff series. They beat him versus Ottawa in 2004.
Who?
Jason Spezza.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If you lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2004, the last time the Leafs won a playoff series, Jason Spezza was on the ice.
I just want to expire. He
knows something about the Leafs winning.
So
it's unbelievable. And hey, here's a fun little stat. Riley Nash is where the Leafs go to die in the playoffs because he beat the Leafs as a member of the Boston Bruins. He beat the Leafs as a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And thanks to Aaron Portzline for this tweet, by playing in 2 out of 7 playoff games, which is over 25%, the Leafs' 7th rounder that they gave Columbus turns into a 6th. He played 2 games with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He played 2.
To be fair, chances are
sucks. Boo! We should all shout it from the rooftops.
Steve. To be fair, he played 2 more games than that 6th round pick is probably going to play in the NHL.
Oh, Adam, I need you. Okay, when that 6th round pick wins the Hart, you need to buy their jersey.
Okay,
it's
fair.
not necessarily even a 6th round pick. He's going to play 2 more games than the upgraded 30 that you get,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, well, no, and here's what I want to say, guys, is this, if I tweeted it out and I got for me, it's a lot, 3,000 likes. I said it was very likely Mitch Marner's last game. And I said, why? And I also said, hey, it's going to cost him a pile in endorsements. And people are from Chicago and New York and LA are like, oh, hockey players can get endorsements. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Actually, I do. Because in all the cities you just mentioned, hockey's not the dominant sport. And trust me, the numbers here are much bigger than the numbers they would be here for hockey. Doesn't mean you can't make money, but you're not going to get the same money and it's not going to be the same.
It'll cost him his dream.
Yes, it'll cost him his dream. So go with that, Steve. I want to talk about that.
For the guys on the Toronto Maple Leafs who grew up cheering for the Toronto Maple Leafs, your dream was to win the Stanley Cup with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You go somewhere else, you win, you hoist it above your head, you bring the cup to the cottage, you celebrate with your friends, you drink out of it, and you get your ring, and for the rest of your life, you'll have that silver medal. And it'll be a great thing. Not everyone wins silver. It's a special thing to win silver. People talk too bad about the silver medal. You know, you worked your entire life and you're the second best in the world at something. You know, I'm being a little facetious about it, but if your dream was to win a cup with the Leafs, it seems so obvious that that's Spezza's goal.
Yeah.
Jason Spezza could go somewhere else and they'd welcome him with open arms. He had 30 points this season in 54 games. He'd be welcomed with open arms. He had as many points as Chris Kreider, I was looking up today.
More than Josh Anderson?
More than Josh Anderson. Like, you should see the players who had the same amount of points as Jason Spezza. Joel Eriksson Ek. Like he's in there with some really good names, like some solid names, far younger names. He could go anywhere, but his dream is so clearly to win the Stanley Cup with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he's got the chance. Not every Leaf fan gets this chance. You know what I mean? Steven Stamkos grew up cheering for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been on the Lightning his whole career, and he won. Hooray. And I raise it above my head. But maybe winning the cup is your dream, but then winning it with the Leafs is your super dream, and you have your fucking chance. And you're wiping your ass with it. And it kills me as someone who doesn't have the talent. I don't have the talent. We grew up with the same dream, but I never learned how to skate. and like, but you know, like I'm out there in the driveway, I'm by myself, and that was me. And it could be you, and you can make it real. It goes back no matter where you go, it won't be here.
The fans care more than the players at the end of the day.
Sure.
Like I 100% believe that you, Steve, care more about winning a Stanley Cup than every guy who played for the Leafs on Monday night. You know, and I wish they had your passion for the team. Would it lead to results? I don't know. Maybe they would be too passionate and would paralyze themselves into oblivion. But who knows?
I want to throw something at you guys. Can I tell you about what I hope? I read a book about hope, and basically it told you to stop hoping. It's a Mark Manson book, and I was like, this book is depressing as hell. He's like, don't
stop hoping.
He's like, don't hope because AI is taking over in a few years anyway. I'm like, okay, well, with the years I got left, I'm going to use some hope. But the thing I hope is that I'm wrong. What I hope is that Kyle Dubas, if he watches this, which he doesn't, goes, fuck you, and keeps the core together, finds a way for these guys to win. Mitch Marner wins the Art Ross.
Yep.
Matthews wins the Rocket and the Hart.
And we look like
Jack Campbell wins the Vezina, and they steamroll every goddamn team, all of them together, to the Stanley Cup Finals where they win next year. That's what I hope. I hope I'm wrong with Mitch Marner. I don't want to see Mitch Marner traded. This is the thing. When you say like, hey, this is probably his last game. This sucks. Do you think I fucking want to say this? What I want to be talking about is how Mitch Marner matches up with Matthews against Wheeler and Scheifele in round 2. That's what I want.
This is why I get kind of upset sometimes when people quote this show, and I'm like, you just said a tweet. We talked for 2 hours. So here we are now. I don't want Mitch Marner to be traded.
No.
I want him to hoist the Stanley Cup above his head as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And live his dream, right, Steve?
And live his dream.
And yours.
And help me realize mine. I know I'll never be on that fucking team. I'd like him to help me realize my dream of watching the Leafs, of covering the Leafs, winning the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
But this year's team that looked so ready, couldn't do it, and now we got to look at options.
It's not even that they couldn't do it. They couldn't win one more game.
They could do it, and that's what's so fucking crazy.
They could, and they didn't
absolutely
do it.
Fucking could.
And
they could.
Undisputable fact, Game 7 was their worst game.
Without question.
Again, the third straight playoff series. So, is it a feature or a bug?
I don't know. I mean,
11-2 for God's sake. Any other team. Okay. So we're talking about the Leafs here because we watch them the closest, but we dabble around the league. Any other team, we see them. We see that they've been outscored 11-2 in deciding games over their past 3 deciding games. We go, oh yeah, no, they need to blow it up. Oh yeah, no, there's something wrong there. The combination's not right. They need to do something, anything. Even a trade that will look like the wrong decision at the time will at least be something. And then we move forward. I saw a great discussion. It was the Bruins of like the early 2000s, and it was like first round exit, missed the playoffs, first round exit, second round exit, first round exit, missed the playoffs, first round exit, something like that. Like it wasn't good. They I think got into the second round once in like 10 years. But they still won it. And then I think it was Jay Fresh on Twitter was like, yeah, but they traded Blake Wheeler, Phil Kessel, Joe Thornton, Sergei Samsonov. Like they traded astoundingly good players.
Let Byron Defoe walk. Like there was a huge roster turnover with big
Lord
players.
Byron. And
they won. That was the Tim Thomas when they won it, right?
Yeah, and
who came out of nowhere at the age of 400 to win a fucking playoff series.
And sometimes you fall ass backwards into a 12th round pick of the Nordiques who's in his 30s.
Right.
But around Tim Thomas was Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara and a young Brad Marchand and a young Tyler Seguin and like they were a very, very good team on paper. They were a top 10 team analytically that year, if I remember correctly. Canucks were way better, but the Bruins were still up there, but they also got out of this world goaltending. Rask was the starter the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's sports. I'm waiting for that. When do the Leafs fall ass backwards into any kind of fortune like that? When is there hilarious moment where you go, I this makes no sense?
Your Hamburglar moment.
Can I?
Yes. Fuck. Great point. When do they go on a 20-2 run with an AHL backup?
Well, they have Jack Campbell, who was a surprise this year. Although if you look at his underlying numbers, you think, well, he probably was capable of this. So you didn't fall ass backwards into it, but it's a positive. But you're right.
There was at least some inkling of this guy could end up being our starter.
Well, yeah, because he took a shitty LA team and still had a crazy save percentage.
Tim Thomas was there because Hannu Toivonen wasn't who they expected him to be. And if you're going, who the fuck is that? Exactly.
So at the end of the day, let me leave you with this. The hardest thing to do is to do nothing. And if the Leafs do not trade Mitch Marner and I am incorrect, I'm happy. I'm happy to be incorrect. And I'm even happier if they go out and tear it up next year. I'm happiest still if they do it in the playoffs. That is what I want. That is what Jesse wants. That is what Steve wants. Yes. Do not misquote us on this. We want this team with these players who we've invested now 6-7 years into. I mean, God, Nylander's been around since 2015. It's 2021.
I'm into.
I mean, we're halfway through 2021, by the way. This is month number 6. So, I remember Steve writing one of his first articles for Sportsnet, and it was about Zach Hyman, some kid that they'd fallen ass backwards into, actually, believe it or not.
I'm going to be inconsolable if they lose Zach Hyman for nothing.
Well, hopefully not. But I do think that there are more things that we need to discuss with Chris Johnson. So before, I hear it all the time. Oh, you guys are too hard on the Leafs. This is the job, guys. When they don't perform, we have to talk about this. And the other thing is, let me just say it one more time. If you are abusing human beings online, please get help. Please get help. You need it. You need help. If you've ever done it, you need help. Go to a therapist, talk it out, improve yourself. You only have you to blame for that. And we have Chris on Friday, and James Myrtle is tentatively booked for next Wednesday as well. So we'll get his opinion. Nice. There's lots and lots of Leafs coverage to get to. And also, with apologies to every other market that listens to our show, and genuinely, we do appreciate it. We will get back to it. Friday, we will start talking about the rest of the playoffs too. It's just been, as you can imagine, a total fucking meltdown in Toronto.
I got news for you. Look at the numbers on this channel, on my channel, on the Sportsnet channel. Everyone's watching because they want to know what on God's green earth the Leafs are going to do.
Well, as our friend CJ often does, he will tell us. We will have questions, and hopefully, maybe we can get a little bit more closure on a season that still feels like a gaping open wound. Are you guys down with that?
Totally. Can I do something and put your Toronto Maple Leafs fandom into perspective for a second here?
Please do.
The Boston Red Sox went 85 years without winning a World Series title. The Chicago White Sox went 87 years without winning a World Series title. The Chicago Cubs went 107 years without winning a World Series title. You're not close. Like, this isn't like everybody's like, oh, the Toronto Maple Leafs are fucking cursed. We're the worst franchise. No, you're not close. Get there. You don't even win that. Also,
I will say they went to the finals.
You're only the worst in hockey, guys.
You're only the worst in hockey. Also, you want true futility? The Sacramento Kings. I'm gonna tell you about the Sacramento Kings for anybody who doesn't know. The Sacramento Kings entered the NBA as a franchise. They moved over from Kansas City. They're the Kansas City Kings. They joined the NBA in 1985. From 1985 until 2000, they didn't win a playoff round.
Oh,
as a franchise from 1985 to 2000, they didn't win a franchise.
That's still less time than the Leafs' current streak, by the way.
All time since their franchise 1985 to 2021, they have yet to make an NBA finals. Never made the finals. Currently as a team, since 2006 to 2021, they have not qualified for the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs from 2006 to 2021 up until the streak is still going. They haven't made the playoffs. You have it a little better than some other teams around sports. So
is Rudy Gay on the Sacramento?
He wasn't he?
Still there? I don't know
where Rudy Gay is now. I want to throw this at you.
I thought he was on San Antonio.
Things can always get worse.
Let me just throw this at you too. The only difference is, things can get worse, Jesse. The only difference is Sacramento doesn't have the resources of, say, the New York Knicks, who continually fuck it up. The New York Knicks do make me feel better about being a Leafs fan. I mean, New York does have its share of successful teams, but at least we don't have that guy as our owner. We had that guy as our owner in the 70s and 80s, and it'll be okay. And we'll figure it out and we'll get there. Okay.
They're in a good position, this Leafs franchise. They have, like you said, Adam, the resources, and there's some talent there. Also, Adam, are you okay to talk about what we talked about earlier?
Yeah. History corner, right?
Yes. If you don't mind doing history corner.
Okay. So I said, oh God, because of what happened in Canada this week. And Steve, this is going to be a bit of a dark subject, but I think it's important that we discuss it.
Yes. It
was Jesse's idea, but I think it was a good discussion.
Okay.
No, it was. It was full credit where it's due. So for quick history corner, we're going to talk about what happened in Canada with something called the residential school system. And I know this is a tough one, but I think you got to know what happened here. So the Coles notes on this, and I encourage you to do a little more research.
Can we just say as well, there's 215 unmarked graves of children that were found last week in Kamloops, BC.
Outside of a school. And I've actually had a few DMs about this, and I was like, man, do we talk about that in the SDP? But I think when it comes to causes that we believe in, we should.
Yeah, and this is something you've mentioned before. Mm-hmm. Like you've brought this up specifically in your history corner. So yeah, it's important that we address it. So
basically they're flying over this school with infrared scanning, and they're able to pick up bones. They're able to see the outlines of bones. And you're talking about, what was it? How was it? It was 215?
215
separate kids that were unaccounted for. We don't even know who they are. We don't know what their names were. We don't know what tribe they were from. We don't know anything. We're finding out, but it's still going to be a tough one. So what happened was when there was an act that was called the Indian Act, and there were a couple other acts as well in the 1880s that instituted a policy of, on both sides, both the British colonial government / Canadian government at the time, which was sort of in transition, and the tribes, especially out west, which is where this kind of all started. You got to remember that Canada at the time was like British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, and like the eastern provinces. There was no Manitoba, there was no Saskatchewan, there was no Alberta. It was just the Great Plains, the Hudson's Plains, or what are they called? Anyway, long story short, they turn this land into Canada. They send surveyors out, and they create these reserves. And the local chiefs at the time, understandably, were concerned about the next generation's ability to survive in a stranger's world. Meaning that, you know, if you're a chief and you've been out on the plains the whole time, and literally you were hunting buffalo, and you might have been Métis, you might have been one of the Plains Indians, and I would say, I wouldn't use that term anymore, but that's what they were called at the time. The issue becomes, okay, well, my type of life is going away. The way I survive, our tribal traditions is going, because we've signed this treaty. We're outmatched, outmanned. Our land is no longer our own. We're being moved to this spot, and we will not be able to do the things that we used to do before. And the herds of buffalo that used to be out here that we used to live off of when we migrated along with them are gone, because these, and believe it or not, guys, when those first railway tracks made their way across the country, and this happened in the United States and Canada, they would actually have guys on the train, like trainloads of people, where if they ran across a buffalo herd, these guys would get out and start shooting until they ran out of bullets and then move on. And the whole thing was for sport. So you might take one buffalo head with you to mount on your wall, but you might have killed 1,000, 2,000 in a herd. And you know how big buffalo are. So that's a lot. And there are stories of these native peoples in Canada and the United States coming upon these total death zones, just an entire herd wiped out and then rotting in the sun. And as you know, Canada's native peoples would have used all of that. They used the muscle fibers. They ate. They used the bones. They used everything because they needed to. The plain settlers just didn't look at things that way, and were quite wasteful. And that goes back to, there's a whole bunch of things like that happened in Africa. Hunting at the time was outrageous across the world. And anyway, long story short, these chiefs rightly thought, well, shit, what the hell am I going to do? Put yourself in their position. Your kid is growing up, and you can't teach them anything about what world is coming, about how their life is going to be. So there's a provision set up wherein the Canadian government is supposed to educate these kids and help them, give them the skills to, I guess, be a part of the society that is incoming. And so the whole idea is, okay, so you guys are making us give up our land. You need to educate our children so that they can survive in your world. We don't have a choice here, so at least give us our kids that. So what the Canadian government does is they set up 3 schools. And there had been some in Quebec in the New France era, but it was, well before this and not really connected in the same way. So the Canadian government does this, and they start to do this across the country. And what happens is they, because of the politics of the time and the optics of the time, use the resources of churches and religious organizations, because the Canadian government's basically broke. They don't have the money to do this. And they want to strip this new generation of native kids of their culture. They want them to be Euro-Canadian, is what Canadian Encyclopedia uses. And so they put them in these schools. They take them away from their tribes, away from their families. They are not allowed to go home because the government can't afford it. And they turn them over to the church. And forgive my offense, any offense given to anybody who is religious, but we know the history of the Catholic Church in recent times. Imagine remote areas, a bunch of children, and a couple of guys. There was widespread reports of serious sexual assaults, beatings, and also, frankly, because they had no money, they were actually under strict orders to save as much as possible. These kids didn't eat much more than like oatmeal, like maybe a little bit of beef at the end of the day.
A lot of manual labor as well.
A lot of and so I'll get to that. But what that does when you have a shitty diet, what happens? You get sick. Pandemics sweep through. Flus sweep through. And it really affected the female contingent. I mean, there was a report that, like, somebody said you'd lose 2 or 3 girls a month at the school. You lose 2 or 3 girls a month at one particular school because of this. So then on top of that, Steve makes a really good point here. You go to class in the morning. What do they have you doing in the afternoon? Well, for the girls, they're sewing blankets and sewing uniforms. So they're literally building their own uniforms for the next class group. And for the guys, it's, we're going to teach you how to be carpenters. We're going to teach you how to be this, teach you how to do that. Basically, they're digging stuff, they're cutting things. And even with that, they were not able to teach them sufficient skills to actually work in the real world. So if you were native born, you went to one of these residential schools, let's say you graduate and you didn't run away. You end up in Fort Calgary, you end up in Vancouver early days, you end up in Toronto early days when it's York, you end up in Montreal, one of the biggest cities in North America at that time. You don't have the skills. You do not have the skills to even do basic manual labor there. They thought that they were being trained. And here's the other thing. They'd bring these kids to these schools. These kids would not speak English or French, which were the only languages taught. And they would start teaching them in English. How much are you going to learn? Right? So then what happens is you have generations of kids who have not seen their families for literal years, not taught the proper quote unquote Euro-Canadian way of things, told that their culture's terrible, told that they're going to hell, told that they are, what's the word for people that are not Christianized and they pagan, call them little pagans, little pagan heathens is what they used to call them. And they are not directly linked to the new culture coming into their land. They're also, when they go back to their tribes, completely alienated because they don't maybe speak the language anymore and they don't know any of the traditions. And it's been 10 years. Imagine you're 8 years old, you're taken away from your family and you're not back till you're an adult. How much are you going to know about them? How much are you going to know about your tribal traditions? So what it did was you have, over the course of, say, 80 years, 150,000 people who are between two worlds. Completely between two worlds. There's a wall up, and this is how they describe it. There's a wall up with the tribe because I don't fit in there. And there's a wall up with, the Europeanized North America because I don't fit in there either. So what am I supposed to do? And here's the most starkly insane fact about this, and then I'll shut up. 150,000 people they think showed up. 150,000 people they think showed up for these schools and were taken away from their families. 6,000 at least died.
At least.
I want you to imagine that 3% of all kids that went to school in Toronto died. 3 in 100. So if you go to high school and you got 10,000, or 1,000 people there, 30 of them are going to die.
An entire class.
It's crazy. Those numbers, and those numbers are probably way lower than what actually happened. And it falls to the Canadian government. It falls to the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the United Church, Presbyterian Church. All of them were involved. I think the Catholic Church had 3/5 of all schools, and the Anglicans were 2/5, and whatever. Everybody's culpable here. Everybody's culpable, and it's an ugly, ugly, ugly stain in our history. It is not. It's so funny. Under Diefenbaker in the 50s, Canada became this peace-loving nation. The residential school system happened. The last school closed in 1996.
That's what I was just about to say, that the Gordon Residential School, the federal government began to shut down the schools across Canada in the 1970s, though the last residential school, the Gordon Residential School in, I think it's Puniki, Saskatchewan, closed in 1996. Each member of the show was alive.
Wow.
So many of the people listening to this were alive. It's a time you remember, and you probably had no idea. I ahead of the Game 7 stream, talked to a friend of mine who's Indigenous, and I said, listen, what's an Indigenous charity that you value and trust? And he gave me the name. Actually, Jesse, I'll send you the link. Maybe we can add it to the video for this. And I was just like, honestly, man, I had no idea. And this guy was, is my friend, and we were, really close throughout university. And this never came up. And he's like, dude, I didn't even really know until maybe 10, 12 years ago. And
do you have the name of the charity on hand?
Yes. So it
Shout out on the show.
is, I have it open. It's called on CanadaHelps.org, Indian Residential School Survivors Society. It's a registered business on CanadaHelps.org. Yeah, lots of people saying, yes, this is I've heard enough people talk about it that I trust it.
Right.
And I just want to thank Cash, who reached out on Instagram. He said his grandmother is a survivor of residential school. She's in her 60s now, and she was very traumatized by it. And he's in grade 11, Cash, and he said he never learned about it in school. He had to find out through his grandmother. So that prompted me to ask you for this conversation, Adam. So thank you, Cash, for reaching out about that.
It's a failure. Sorry,
go ahead.
Well, it's such an enormous failure of our education system. Like I remember learning a lot about Rupert's Land and super old Canada when it was just getting settled, and you heard about the different tribes and treaties. They don't talk about how none of them were honored. And I don't. Residential school is a term I learned probably within the last couple of years.
Yeah. Now let me say, stick one other thing in your craw. First off, was it Chase that reached out to you?
Cash.
Sorry.
Cash's grandmother.
Cash. I hope that first off, Cash's mom or grandmother is the same age as my mom, right? That ain't long.
Right.
And that's not that long ago. And let me also say this. When the Canadian government finally did issue its first apology for this, it was 2005. And they put together a reserve fund for survivors of the school. So you could apply and make some money. It was only $1.9 billion. Sounds like a lot, but it's not, considering what the fuck happened. We're talking generational abuse. On top of that, and this will stick in your craw, because it was a Stephen Harper government, and I say that because I know how Stephen Harper operates. This is exactly what he would do. They made no provision in there for Newfoundland and Labrador because they argued when the residential school system was active in Newfoundland and Labrador, it was still a British colony, which it was until 1949 when it joined Confederation. So the Conservative government in 2005 under Stephen Harper refused to take responsibility for it and refused to help. And it wasn't until, I think it was 2016, where the Trudeau government stepped in and said, no, we're all doing this. And you can say what you want about Trudeau, but that is some cold, calculating, nasty bullshit right there.
It is. However, the Canadian government is still fighting against lawsuits and other legal action. And a lot of this was going on with Trudeau's dad in charge. I don't know if Americans know that. His 100%. Dad used to be prime minister.
Yeah, his dad did a lot of things to move the country forward, but this seemed like an easy one. And it's crazy. One of the prime ministers that was prime minister was, at the time, this is the title at the time, Indian Affairs Minister. Knew exactly what was going on. Became prime minister. Did nothing.
Was he really?
I don't think it was Trudeau's. I don't think it was Trudeau. I got to figure out who it was, but I know that. Again, of course, I do all the research and forget that name. But
Canada, we like to get on our high horse about a lot of things, but the way Indigenous peoples have been treated here is monstrous.
Yeah, and you're talking about somebody that there are cultures that almost entirely wiped out. And I always believe that the more cultures you have in a society, the better you do. Because it allows you to step outside of your box and realize that life isn't one way. It's multiple different ways. I wish I'd known more about this when I was younger, but I have to say it's nice at least that people are talking about it en masse now. Now the question is, what do we do?
All right. Canada does a great job hiding its atrocities from its own people.
Yep. Yes.
Especially from their children growing up in schooling. I had no idea about these things until my late 20s. It's ridiculous.
And it happened. We were alive. I remember 1996. And there were kids while I was in school going to school at a residential school.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
There are kids they look my age.
Yes.
They look like young men and women. They're not old. They're under 40 who went to these schools.
Like
monstrous.
All the flags at half mast across the country, like that's awesome. Like you should definitely do that, but also we need to take some action.
Yeah, this is why I I was sort of talking to my wife, and she was like, can we do something other than like an orange ribbon? Like, it's all well and good.
Yeah, but it doesn't
the
really
message
help
is good.
anyone. Like thoughts and prayers for this mass shooting, but ban guns. Like,
right. It's along those same lines. So that's a good place to start. And I'm open to suggestions, because again, this is something I'm just really learning about. And if there are other charities, maybe on like a more local level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe Kamloops specific. I don't know.
Anyway,
it's insane. It's an abrupt turn, but we've talked about so much on this show, and there are the atrocities, right? So many people don't even know about this one.
Yeah. I know more about things that happened in Eastern Europe in 1942. Not that you shouldn't know that, but if you should know that, you should know what happened at home too.
Well, and like seeing people like, well, a lot of those kids died of tuberculosis. Like, kids are just supposed to die of tuberculosis en masse.
And how did they get tuberculosis?
Like
you can get, it was highly infectious, yes, but they know that a diet helps, right?
Who's
eating food?
This goes back to our other thing about if you're on an athlete's Instagram telling them to you suck or whatever. If you're on Twitter trying to defend the death of children, like, you got something wrong with you.
Yeah, no, I don't trust you to operate a motor vehicle. I don't want to drive next to you.
Oh no, it's tuberculosis. Like, no, go speak to someone.
Yeah,
please.
Yep.
Anyway, love you guys. Please do some research on that. Yes.
Can I say one thing? Since we started this podcast, Pride Month began. Happy Pride Month to everybody out there celebrating, which should be everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you. We'll see you Friday with Chris Johnston. Down to be a banger.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Connection.